you have it. Mustache of note. Go donate. Alright guys, for those of you joining us for the first time, this is not my usual look. I said I would do a Movember in my last video if it got 10 likes, which was a stupid thing to say, and raise some money for testicular cancer awareness or just men's health in general. And I created a page, the link is down below. Go donate, especially if you're one of the people who decided to like the video for first time ever. And even if you're not one of the people who liked it, go donate anyway. Let's see if we can raise $1,000, guys. I'm gonna put some of my own money in there and everyone should just donate. Go do it now. Pause the video, go donate first and then come back and watch the rest of it. Alright, here we go. We're going to do 20 things that you need to know when you're a beginner filmmaker. I've got my little book of many things, so let's get on with it. Number one, you learn when you edit. This is the most important thing I can teach anyone that wants to get into filmmaking or that just started filmmaking, because in your mind you think what you're shooting is going to work a certain way, but it doesn't always work that way. That was the biggest problem for us on our first trip. We shot for 2.5 months and didn't edit, and that was the very first time I've shot anything ever. Like, I had no idea what I was doing. And so once I started editing the footage after the trip, I started learning, oh, I should have done this, I should have done that. Yes, you learn a little bit when you film, I know. But most of the time you learn when you edit. You see what you filmed, you see how it works, what doesn't work, which is not things that you see while you're shooting. Okay, point number 2, sound. Sound is more important than picture. Okay, maybe it's not more important, but it's very, very important. This is something I also didn't know when I started. We didn't have good mics, we didn't really care about sound a lot of the time. I cannot tell you how many times I had to get rid of footage where I couldn't use footage because the sound was so bad that I couldn't even sort of make it work. Sound is very important. Right, point number 3. This is quite an important one, especially when you're editing cinematic-y, music-y type of films, drone footage, wedding footage. Take 24 hours away from your project before you post it. This is so important. I cannot tell you how many times I've edited drone footage or wedding footage where I have edited music in and got it all done, and then I think, wow, this is amazing, and you get so caught up in the atmosphere or the effect that the music that you're putting in has on you and the idea you have in your head that you don't actually see what's in front of you. So take some time away from the edit before you post it. It makes a massive difference, obviously, if you can. If you cannot do it, you cannot do it. Point number 4. Point number 4 is about 4K or resolution for that matter. This video I'm shooting in 4K at the moment. I don't know if I'll post it in 4K because honestly, you don't really see the difference on YouTube. Most people watch it on their phones, and yes, you can see a slight difference, but the content, the coloring, and the sound is gonna make a much bigger difference than the actual resolution. 4K is cool, but it's not important. You don't have to shoot in 4K. Don't go, oh, because I don't have a red Epic or Dragon that shoots 8 or 12K, or a Sony a7S like I'm shooting on that shoots 4K, you're not going to film. 1080p is good enough. Most people still watch 1080p. Point number 5. Point number 5 is kind of an interesting one because it's got 2 parts. So point number 5 is plan before you shoot. The reason I say this is an interesting one is because sometimes you can't plan, you can't do planning before you shoot a wedding. Yes, you can go beforehand and scope out the venue and do some shots and plan this and plan that. Once the people actually arrive and they're doing their own thing, you can't ask everyone to act in a certain way. It's not a closed set. The few things that you can do beforehand is, number 1, plan the mood. So what mood are you shooting? Are you shooting a happy wedding, or are you shooting a sad departure of someone going overseas, if you will? Plan that in the first instance so you can have an idea in your head. Are you shooting people that's laughing all the time with lots of movement and quick edits like boom, 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 boom? Or are you shooting a slow edit where your B-roll has to be much longer and much slower and the movement is slower? Just get a slight idea of what the mood is that you're filming on that project or on that day. Number 2 under that point is gear. Make sure you know what gear you're gonna take. Whether you're gonna take your handheld camera with a 50mm f1.8 because you want nice bokeh-licious, beautiful looking smooth shots, or you're gonna take a telephoto lens because you're gonna go film wildlife. You're gonna shoot in a really bright outdoor setting, then you have to take ND filters most likely, which is something we'll get to in a later point for those of you who don't know what ND filters are. And number 3 under that point is light. So whether you are going to shoot in an indoor area where you need a low light lens, whether you need extra lights, whether you can just use the daylight. Often when shooting weddings, I cannot put a light on the dance floor because no one wants a giant bright light in the middle of the dance floor that's going to affect the mood and people are going to be all shy because the wedding's bright. So I often have to shoot with my Sony a7S II, which is really good in low light and with an f1.8 lens, and I just have to shoot it wide open. You don't have to sit down and write it all down on paper and make a very impressive spreadsheet out of it. You just need to plan in your head sort of what idea you're gonna have when you should film that specific shoot. Point number 6. Okay, now we're getting a little bit more technical stuff. Not technical, but things that are camera-based, equipment-based, and gear-based, and technique-based. So the first 5 is kind of obvious things. Number 6 is shoot 5 seconds longer than you think you need. I cannot tell you how many times I've had a shot, and then when I get to the editing room, I'm like, oh, I just wish I had 5 seconds more, just 2 seconds more than when I actually pause or stop the camera. So what I do now when I shoot, if I'm filming dancing or a bride crying or whatever it might be, I'll film it, and just before I want to press stop, I count 1, 2, 3, and then I pause the video or stop the recording, because I've learned that gives you just that little bit more play. Sometimes you need to speed stuff up, sometimes you need to slow stuff down, you need to cut in between. It's just record for 5 seconds longer than you think you need. Point number 7, if in doubt, slow-mo it out. Shoot 120 or 100 frames per second, or even 60 frames a second if you have to. If you look at these 2 shots that I'll show you guys now, the one is just the same shot in slow-mo as a normal speed, and just both have music on them, and look at how different it looks. Look at how much dreamier and just more emotional it looks in slow-mo. Do you guys see what I mean? So if in doubt, just do it slow-mo. Alrighty, point number 8, music. Editing to music more specifically. So when I started filmmaking, or when I started editing for that matter, I often edited to the music. So I used to pick the song and then I used to edit to it. You pick a song because you like that song, and then you edit to that song and you try and make your footage fit the music, which is probably the worst thing you could do, because you have an emotional connection or whatever it might be to that specific song, and it invokes emotion in you, and that's why you chose it. Now you're trying to take footage that might not match that emotion and add to it. The tip here is edit to either no music or to music that you're not going to use. Once you're done with that, take away the music completely, and then watch the edit as you did it. So watch the whole edit without music, and then see if it's still interesting. See if it still keeps your attention. See if you need to cut your transitions quicker, or whether you need to make them longer, or it makes the world of difference if you do that without music. Then you go and look for your music that'll fit with your content, and then you add it in afterwards. Okay, point 9, how to choose your music. This kind of falls in with the same category as 0.8. But the important thing to remember here is don't choose your music before you've done your content, and don't choose the music just because you like that song. Your footage might not work with that specific song. I know this is very similar to 0.8, but if you think about it, it's not quite the same. 0.10. Shutter speed is important. Okay, so this is a little bit more technical tip for those of you who are new to filmmaking. General rule for shooting footage is double shutter speed 2 frames per second. You have to shoot your shutter speed double what your frames per second is most of the time. Not always, there are times that you want to shoot it higher or lower, but most of the time you do want to shoot your shutter speed double that. So that kind of gives you a smooth motion blur, it kind of looks natural. See how my hand kind of looks all natural. If you shoot your shutter speed much higher than double your frames per second, it's going to look a lot more actiony. If you want to have kind of a drunkish look almost, like if you want to make footage look like someone's drunk, you put your shutter speed the same as your frame rate or just less. Then you get this really hectic motion blur and it'll almost look like you're drunk. Now we're shooting at 24 frames per second and I think it's like 1/8 of a second shutter speed or something like that. So look at how this motion blur is affecting you now. Look, I'm gonna go behind the camera and then move it around and then you'll see what I mean with is that drunk look. Ooh, I had way too much to drink and I'm stumbling down. Okay, now I'm going to show you what it looks like when it's really actiony and like choppy and like, so I'm going to shoot at 24 frames per second, 100 shutter speed, 1/100th of a second shutter speed. Now look at how actiony my punches look. See what I mean? Like it looks a lot more actiony. Alright, on to the next point and back to normal shutter speed. Okay, we're back to normal. 24 frames per second, 1/50th shutter speed. But now do you guys see how important it is to shoot at the right shutter speed to get the right effect? Generally, 24 frames per second is what normal footage speed is shot at. If you're shooting at 24 frames per second, which is what I'm shooting this at, you cannot slow that down because you only have 24 frames, 24 pictures that get shot in 1 second. So if you slow that down, it's going to look like this. So I'm going to just make a quick movement here. So now slow that down and it's going to look all jittery. For really smooth slow motion, you have to shoot in 120, 100 or 60 frames per second. Okay, this might seem weird, but my camera crops unfortunately when I shoot at 120, but this is at 120 frames per second. And so now I'm going to slow this down. Watch this. Alright, so you know how I mentioned ND filters earlier? This is where ND filters come into play. When you're shooting a photo in broad daylight, right? So not when you're shooting video, when you're shooting photo in broad daylight, you can bump up your f-stop, you can increase your shutter speed, and you can do all those things to make it not be overexposed. But when you're shooting video, say you're shooting 24 frames a second, like I am now, I'm shooting in f2.2, I believe, and I'm shooting at 1/50th of a second shutter speed. So it's all right. But if it was really, really bright in here, I didn't want to boost the f-stop all the way up to f10 because then the background is going to be all in focus and there's going to be no bokeh. And this is where little ND filters come into play. This is what they look like, big, small. So this one is with this lens, but I don't need it because it's not bright enough in here. This big one, this 72mm, is for my 16-35 lens. So basically this just goes right in the front and it just acts as sunglasses for your camera. If you look at it like that, you guys can probably see through it pretty easily. But now look when I turn it, see how it gets darker, darker, and then all the way black? And that's exactly what it does. So instead of changing your f-stop or your shutter speed or your ISO, which wouldn't help anyway because it makes it brighter if you put it up. But if you whack one of these ND filters on the front and you can keep your frame rate and your shutter speed in sync. Alright, so these are very, very important. I have them for all my lenses. This one's loose. Guess it's time for a new one, then. Thanks for watching. That was a long video. I hope it helped a little bit. Please don't forget to like and subscribe if you'd like some of these tips. There's a lot more coming. I think as I learn, I'll teach you guys. There's a lot more gear reviews coming. And don't forget to go donate for this beautiful Tosh. Please go donate, guys. This is important. Really, it is. Thanks so much for watching, and good night.